Best singer-songwriter male, we have longtime St. Louis musician Bob Reuter.
I want to thank Fred Friction for accompanying me on spoons. I'm a lot more used to losing than I am to winning. And my old man told me something one time. He told me lots of things. He said it is possible for you to become so defiled that your own parents will not recognize you. So continue drinking is something to aspire to. So in '97, I was in the hospital, and I was laying there, in bed there, immobilized for 8 days. And I was really tripping out on bills and stuff, and what I was going to do about the house and my truck and all kinds of stuff. And this foreign doctor was asking me what's wrong, and I told him, and he was saying that I told him that I was worried about the bills, and I was like trying to call bill collectors and shit, and he told me not to worry about that, to concentrate on getting well. And I kind of was like, what, then I won't lose everything? So like, that's not the point. You concentrate on getting well. And I sort of got what he was saying. Like, if I'm dead, it doesn't much matter what goes on. And I kind of made a choice and a decision then to just trust the universe, and it was like an experiment, because for the first time in my life I didn't have a mother, a girlfriend, a wife, any kind of partner to tell me that what I was gonna do was insane or something, that was irresponsible or whatever. So I just made this decision to, I could not house paint anymore. I mean, it wasn't just physical, it was a whole lot mental. Something inside my head just snapped, and I couldn't do that no more. I could not tolerate the smell of that shit, just like nothing about it. I just fucking hated it. I didn't want to do it anymore. I hated like the rich yuppie people that I had to work for. I hated the way I'd be dirty all the time. I hated everything. I hated the pains, everything, the smell. I just, I couldn't take it no more. And I just decided that I wasn't going to kill myself working a stupid fucking regular straight job. I was going to like make a living, or I wouldn't, based on what it was that I could do, like my talents. And it was pretty insane, and it's been hard, but I was pretty much getting by, just sort of meeting my basic cost. My overhead was always really low, but I got on. And here lately things have changed. But like almost 2 years ago, I had the heart operation, and everything got fucked up after that. After the first time I was in the hospital for the blood clots, when I came out of it, that's when I like learned photography and everything. And everything was exploding, in a good way. It was like, it was like I had a chance to be born again, you know, a new start. And I just, you know, I wouldn't have traded it for anything. It was worth getting those blood clots to have that awakening. It was like a new day. After the heart operation, I didn't feel any of that. I just felt more beat up. And I fell behind everything. I fell behind in my rent, just all kinds of bills. And I had already like had a thing where I wrecked my car and I didn't have insurance. I wrecked somebody else's car. And it took away my license for a year, and I had to go through the winter that way. And that helped break me down. And then all the hard stuff, I started just getting scared that I was going to die, you know. And like, I've always had this basic feeling in me, like it was all going to be all right. Like in the end, I was going to be this big success, you know, that like my talent would out. Anyway, I used to be able to trust that everything was going to be okay, and I'd get like these constant reminders that it would, you know, like I'd not know how I was going to pay a bill, and some money would come to me, you know, and it was just like proof from the universe that it would, you know, to cool out, that it was going to be okay. But that's not happening so much now, you know. And I just lie awake nights and I trip on stuff, you know. Just, I kind of got evicted from the last place I was staying, and that was just an ugly situation. A lot of sickness going on in that whole building with the landlord and everything, and my situation. I needed to get out of there. And I did. They kind of evicted me. They had a son who was like, needed to come home because he was like sick, and I was behind in my rent, and they just told me I had to get out. So I get this other place, and it's a whole lot better, but like I'm having the same problem. I'm not, it's really tight trying to pay the rent and get the basic bills paid, like the insurance on my car. I mean, since that accident, if I don't have the insurance paid every time, they'll take my license away for good. I don't feel like I have all the time in the world anymore, you know. I knew that it was like just a matter of time, and no matter how long it would take, you know, I would eventually get there. And now I just feel like I don't have all the time in the world. You know, I mean, I'm having to operate like I do, but I worry. And because I know that there is no goal to get to. Like everything is going to be better just, you know, because at some point I get money and I'm able to pay my bills. I mean, if I'm not okay now, I won't be okay then. And I just get overwhelmed that it's not okay. And I'm not going to be okay. And I'm in this relationship now which feels closer to love than I've maybe ever been. And yet, she lives out of town. We have spent these periods where we're apart from each other, and sometimes when we're apart, I just doubt everything. You know, I'm okay. Like, when she's here, we could always talk. We're able to talk about all kinds of stuff. But when she's not here and we can't talk, I just doubt anything that's real, you know? Like, I think about stuff health-wise, and it just really fucks me up. Like, it's scary. Last night we played a gig, or we didn't play a gig, we could have possibly played if there's too many bands for the time they had, allotted, and the two bands who were the main bands, they wanted to play at a certain time and get off stage. We were offered a spot after the whole thing, and these young guys in my band, they wanted to do the gig, just wait around and do it. And more than ever, it just struck me like, I'm 58 fucking years old, and my yardstick for what old is has always been like 60, and I'm 58. And after a while, sometimes I think these kids, they start thinking I'm like one of them, and they're like, why not? Why not? And I gotta tell them, look, I'm trapped in this 58-year-old body. I can't do everything you guys could do. It's like a bigger deal for me. And this one girl goes, yeah, but I thought you just act like it didn't matter, And then once I say that out loud to them, then I start feeling it more. Otherwise, I just think, I just have this picture of me as not old. Not necessarily young, but not old either. And sometimes when I get scared, which is more and more lately with this economy and everything, it all comes apart. And I don't get any sleep, and it comes apart more. It seems like it all comes down to like having faith that everything's okay, everything's gonna be okay. And it's been a long time since I felt this scared and fucked up. Like sometimes I could just feel like recognition was just a few feet away or something, and lately, I don't know if I feel the inspiration right now. I don't feel like anything I'm doing is that exciting. I don't feel like I'm turning anything out, like I'm not writing songs. I'm not drawing, I'm not shooting a lot of pictures. I'm just hanging on and getting by and wondering how I'm going to pay the bills. And waiting for Sarah to realize that I'm really fucked up. Anyway, that's what's going on with me inside my head right now. Anyway, I'm pretty convinced that anybody with the brain in their head is going to be feeling stuff like this sometime. I almost worry more about people who don't even think. The main thing I try to keep in my mind is that everybody has their doubts all the time. And I've been granted a gift that I've gone this long being hungry. Just being still hungry. And if it's starting to burn out now, I've gone an awful long time, I keep waiting for whatever it's going to be the new thing that I'm supposed to be doing. It's the new exciting thing. And I'm just waiting. And I find myself, sort of like pulling in. Like I don't have the community I used to have. I don't. I'm not involved in that music community as much as I was, not by a long shot, and it's all changed. You know. That's the thing. You can't cling to anything. You have to keep on moving. Changing. And it don't get easier as you get older. And I'm trying. And I'm not ready to give up. I'm just saying I get really scared. I lay awake at night and I just trip on stuff. Never even occurs to me a lot of the time to pray or anything like that. Sometimes I think about my mom and dad and all my dead friends, and I just think, you want to give me a hand here? There's one thing that I'm is coming to me lately about how kind of isolated I am, that I have opinions on stuff. I have way stronger opinions than most people, and like a lot of people think I'm just like a crotchety old asshole or something, and don't feel to me like that's what it is. It feels like I'm one of the few people that knows what the hell it is that I believe and don't believe, and I don't suffer fools gladly, and I don't want to put up with crap, and it just drives me nuts, the shit that I hear from people who I have believed in, stuff that they think is worth something, and the thing I got from my family, for better, for worse, and I see all the worst part of it in them, is like, you don't cross somebody in my family. I mean, I've seen them cut people out of their lives who like have been there their whole lives, and they just cut them out because of something they did, I mean, I got a brother-in-law who had this lifelong friend. They were both telephone linemen, and when one of them, when his friend got promoted to the office, he just cut him off entirely, because like, now you're on the other side. And there's part of me that's like that. And as an outsider, it looks nuts, extreme, but I don't know. I am a product of where I come from, and that's the city. And I don't have a lot of tolerance for like some like mushy kind of stuff, like pop music, crap like that. It's like, I've got to be this way. It's like, if I don't believe what I'm doing, who is, I mean, it's got to mean something to me, and it does, man. It means so much. And like, people who just like shift their beliefs around and just go which way the wind blows according to like what's best for them, financially or otherwise. When they start feeling the repercussions of that, I don't feel much sympathy at all. I don't feel sympathy for soldiers. I don't know why they would go. That's not entirely true. I mean, I do feel some sympathy after the fact, but there's always a part of me that goes, that's what you wanted. This friend of mine, Mike Swoboda, used to say to me, man, you're really hard on yourself. And I imagine that makes for a pretty uncomfortable life, but can't be nothing but good for your artwork. And I guess he's right, I'm stuck with who I am. What am I going to pretend that I'm not this way? Am I going to pretend that, like, crap is good? I got to do what feels right with my insides. And not too much that will make money that feels right in my insides. And there's this quote from a book of Human Bondage that it says, anybody who thinks that poverty is good for the creative spirit has not felt that hot iron against their flesh. That's really true. I wish that I could. I just wish that I could wish that I could change. I wish that I knew how to flow with fashion, but I don't really wish that. I'd like some of the benefits of that. But even if I got it, it'd just be fleeting because I'd go out of fashion again and that'd be it. It all comes back to them feelings that I learned when I was a kid about something about me, so inside of me that's bad. I don't want to believe that, but it won't go away. It's like they made me who I am. And I feel both broken and wonderful inside, I know there's something really great inside me. But all this fucked up stuff is like hemming me in. I'm just going to be who I am. And right now I'm just really grateful for all those who are on my side, all those who get what I do. Feel really grateful for Sarah and scared that that's going to go away. I don't know what else to say. All I wanted to do is like express the joy of wild, sort of raw, fucked up stuff.
KDHX St. Louis, independent music plays here.
Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me.
And now it's time for Bob's Scratchy Records. He's so good.
Yeah, well, okay. Hold on, everybody. I'm gonna jolt the turntables here. Okay. Hold on. Jeez. Man, if you get that on tape, you better not ever show that. They'll let me go for sure. Okay, we have there's a film crew here in the studio, basically filming for B-roll for the documentary about myself that's coming out, and I've got my pal Jason Lambert here taking all kinds of abuse from me because I'm all tripped up on chocolate donuts and stuff, and you know, and I'm just trying to like sort through these records that I want to play because I gotta drive the devil out of you. I gotta drive the devil out you. And here's a life lesson song. Okay, this one's by Bobby Helm, the same cat that did Jingle Bell Rock. It's on the Little Darlin' label, and it's called "He Thought He'd Die Laughing." Here we go. By Bobby Helm. Oh man. Oh. Okay. Okay. Here we go. This is by a guy, his mentor was Davy Jones. The day the chocolate donuts this happens. That's to crank the thing up. You know, my old pal Larry Weir, he once pulled me aside and he gave me this little story. He said that you know, he didn't tell people anything about his life, you know, that people generally know that he loves his wife and that he loves his job and he loves his vacation and he loves some drinking, but that's all they need to know. And the lesson there was that I tell people too much, you know, but I was like like about a month ago, I told this story about how I was out on the Commerce U City bank parking lot, and I was like, just got done having lunch, and I wanted to play this friend a song that I had just written. So like, I pulled my guitar out of the trunk and I just sat down and just to play this song. And next thing I know, the manager of the bank was there with the security guard, you know, and they were like staring at me, and I saw them go away. And then they came back, and then the security guard came out and said, "Don't kill the messenger, but you got to get out of here." And I said, "What do you mean I got to get out of here?" And he said, "You know, you can't do, you know, this is a parking lot, it's for customers." I said, "I am a customer." And I yanked out my checkbook and I sort of waved it at him, and he said, "You know, well, he called like the regional manager and they said that you can't be out here." And I said, "You're kidding me, you're kidding me." And I said, "Let me talk to him." And I went inside, you know, and I was in there with my guitar, and I said, "You're kidding me, I can't be." He goes, "This is not a concert venue, it's a bank parking lot." And he says, "It's for customers." I said, "I am a customer." So anyway, that all goes by, you know, and then like shortly, like a couple of maybe a week and a half after that, my bank account, a check bounced or something, and they give me like two like penalties on it, and like $60 in the hole. And I think they gave me 3 penalties, and I talked one of them off, and so like it was negative $60, and I didn't have $60, so like I finally went back when I had the $60, you know, and they said, you no longer have an account here. They dropped me. It was like crazy, you know, and I thought, oh, what the hell, you know. So I said, well, okay, and I went back there to talk to the guy to get reinstated, you know, and it turns out it's that guy that I got to talk to, you know, and so that was weird, you know, and I acted like nothing happened, and he acted like nothing happened, but he said, no, I can't guarantee we'll take you back. And so I said, okay, what the hell, you know, I won't even pay this, I'll just go to another bank. And I go to another bank, and they go, well, we just make sure you don't owe any other banks money. And I said, wait a minute, you know, and like, you know, and here's the thing, they won't even take a check, you know, I mean, so it has to be cash. So like, I don't know what to do, you know, and I'm like, I had to go to, I started getting like, I got a ticket, you know, and it was like, well, your tags, they're like expired, and I said, you know, haven't you been checking them? They're like, well, I never look at my license plate, you know. Every year I find out when it's time to get new tags by whenever I get that first ticket, you know. And so I go downtown, and like I had to make 3 different trips, because every time I go to get it legal, they gave me a different price, you know, and like so I have to go home and come back, and then I got it all, but that's all I had, you know. I had just enough to get it all legal, and they said, well, all you got to do is pay these $60 worth of parking tickets you got. I said, oh my God, you know. So like then I get a couple of checks for like taking pictures, and they're all from out of town, and I can't cash the checks because they're from out of town. They're in a bank in town, and you know, so like I got these checks burn a hole in my pocket, and I got no bank account, and it's all just, you know, it all's clouding up. It's all like everybody's choking each other, and there's like beer steins being thrown across the room, and there's like people, you know, falling left and right, and it's all getting really strange, you know. It's just strange. And I said, damn, another day in the life of Bob, another day in the life of Bob. Another day in the life of Bob. Another day, another week in the life of Bob. Another year in the life of Bob. This guy just called and told me I was a customer in the eyes of Jesus. Gotta like that. Jeez. What am I gonna do? You know, what am I gonna do? What the hell am I gonna do? I'm a customer in the eyes of Jesus. My head keeps buzzing. Get the devil out of my head!
Lord's got the squeeze on me.
I'm gonna call up that banker, and I'm gonna say, it's my birthday, and I'm a customer in the eyes of Jesus.
If you were a Republican, you wouldn't have all these troubles with bankers.
Yep.
There's something for you to talk about.
I was telling this friend of mine about Mike the Headless Chicken, how he lived for 3 years, and she said, that's ridiculous. No one could live without a brain. I said, Republicans do it. Amen. I said, amen. Now we got a song by Mr. Roy Hamilton, who did a lot of ballads. In fact, he did a lot of Jesus ballads, but now and again, he would do more of a rockin' number, and this is one of them. It's called Don't Let Go.
Yeah.
Baby, you're making me soaking wet. I'm gonna drive the devil out you. You're listening to Bob Scratchy Records on 88.1 KDHX. That's a bunch of British guys. Matchbox, not the Matchbox with the number after it. This is just Matchbox. There's some rocker guys from England, and this next one is the Ventures, and it's like It's called Slaughter on 10th Avenue, and the song itself is from some obscure musical. I forget what it was about, but there was like a dream sequence, and there was like a ballet going on to it, and this is the song that the ballet was going on to in the dream sequence. Is The Ventures on Bob Scratchy Records. Just got a picture of this ballet going on where a bunch of film noir guys are like cutting each other up and dying on the streets and just laying there in the gutters, and it's like a really kind of warm feeling that takes you back to the urban feel, you know. A lot of people from out in the county, they're kind of like scared to come down here, you know, and that's probably a good thing because we will kill them, you know, but we do what we can, okay? What I'm trying to say is keep that hair product out there in the suburbs, okay? It's 1 minute after 3 o'clock in the great American Midwest. Oh yeah, and it's Friday the 13th. Groovy Joe Poovy. I want to send a shout out to Joe Schwab out there at Euclid Records. Him and Sandy put me up for a week when I got out of the hospital last week. And I just want to thank them for that. Alright, here we go. You listen to Bob Scratchy Records. So I want to thank Marianne from Phoenix for the card she sent. It was terrific. And somebody asked me what it was I wanted for my birthday, you know, and like I think seriously what I want for my birthday is just, you know, just a little love, okay? Just a little love. Or a lot. The old wet and dirty kind. Soppy wet kind. Where you wind up laying in the gutter with your pants pulled up over your head. Amen. At once I feel like I'm one of them blues shows we got on this station, you know? We got about one too many blues shows. So I just lay off this one for a while. Oh, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Yes, it is my birthday. Thank you. This next one I found this one. It comes in a paper bag. I swear. Is this a paper bag? That's a paper bag, and like duct tape. And it's the name of the group is Stagger Lee. I can't find nothing about them. Except that they're from Seattle, or at least this paper bag series is from Seattle. And the song is called It Ain't, and one side is called It Ain't Easy, and the other side is It Ain't No Matter. And this is the It Ain't Easy side. This is Stagger Lee. Yes, you are listening to Bob Scratchy Records. That was a group called Stagger Lee. This is a group called Guitar Wolf. And this song is called Refrigerator Zero, and I'm going to translate it for you. It's the Bob's birthday version. Not a thing, not a thing. Open it again. Refrigerator Zero. Poor Bob's got another birthday. He don't know what to do about it. He wishes he was on drugs. But he don't do that no more. Bob's birthday zero. He's like got one more year before his head explodes. He's got one more year before it all blows up and goes to hell. He's got 20 more years before he stops playing. He's got 20 more years before he stops rocking. He's got 30 more years before he stops breathing. Poor Bob went down to Cherokee. to see what was the matter. Nobody knew it was his birthday. He said to hell with them. Bob's birthday 0. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. He's out there. He's struggling. He's struggling. Hanging in. Hanging in. Holding on. Oh my God. Oh my God. Bob's birthday 0. Something stinks. Something smells like Braunschweiger. I don't know. It's something like a piece of Braunschweiger that's been laying out on the street all night, and people have come by and like sat on top of it, and they don't know what's going on because I was telling them, don't you worry, 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 because it's okay, all right? No matter what, no matter what you're worried about, I promise it's gonna get better. Hang in there. Couldn't stay this way if it tried. You ever get the feeling it's a little bit of chaos that goes on here? Just a little bit of something. Some here is just a little bit out of kilter, you know? I'm not sure what it is. It's just this feeling I get, you know? It's that like it's a nightmare of cops and banks and landlords and this feeling of being dependent on the very people who want to kill you. You know what I'm saying? Oh man, it's the joys of urban life. Say amen, somebody.
Amen.
I wouldn't have it any other way. No place else I want to be. I love the south side of St. Louis. St. Louis is the Garden of Eden, ladies and gentlemen. St. Louis is the Garden of Eden. If it was any better, we couldn't afford to live here. Well, well, well. Anyway, things are all topsy-turvy as normal, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so what we got here is it is my birthday, and that's, you know, happy birthday to me, happy birthday to me. That's like my hero Gabriel. He does that. His birthday is like either it's right around here. Anyway, mine's actually tomorrow. Blah 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 blah. Man, but getting old is not for sissies. I just want to go on record as saying that. And but you do become a lot smarter than young people. Oh my God. Anyway, blah blah blah. I'm moving into this new place, and we got this huge garden. It's down deep in the bowels of the city, and we've got chickens in the backyard. And I started talking about chickens, and this like huge black man who's delivering the PBR over at Monges, he turned around and said, you know, we got chickens. It's like, yeah, my old lady's from Mississippi, you know. She like we got chickens in city St. Louis. You could have up to 4 chickens in your backyard. I said, damn. Then we started talking about chickens, and you know, somebody brought up Mike the Headless Chicken. Back in the 40s, there was this farmer. I don't know, it might have been Utah or something, or Colorado. I think it was Colorado. And he was supposed to go out, his mother-in-law was coming over, he was supposed to go out and get a chicken, and he grabbed this rooster, and he chopped it, and he got sideways, and a few, like, little tiny stems of the brain were left hanging. And the chicken was just, you know, just like wiggling around, and it was like, somehow he discovered that he could, like, feed this chicken through an eyedropper, and it wouldn't die. And it was like really weird, you know. It wound up living for 3 years. He took it on tour. It was like Mike the Headless Chicken, you know. And in the end, it died in its sleep. It was choking. And they didn't have the eyedropper to suck whatever was in his throat out. And I'm not advocating the death of chickens. I just want to make that clear. Yeah, that, because there are people who'll be upset about that. But this whole day goes out to myself because it's my birthday, Thomas Crone, who's my agent, and to Mike the Headless Chicken. So here we go. A little religious here. Oh yes. Help me. Please, somebody help me. Don't let go, don't let go. Oh, so we got us some Soul Dead Brothers. This is Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker of the Soul Dead Brothers. Oh, help me.
Philistines.
All you rock and roll Philistines. Jesus, 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 Jesus.
I mean freedom, justice, and equality.
Just another customer to Jesus. The sounds of North St. Louis in 1969. And I just want to make a general announcement that my pal Daniel is out of jail. He's a free man, well, at least as free as the rest of us. So congratulations, Daniel, and here we go. And you are listening to Bob Scratchy Records on 88.1 KDHX, way down on the left end of the dial. And I just want to bring you up to speed. You know, this show is the Bob's birthday show. You know, yes, it is my birthday, and every year I just get smarter and smarter as the body equally falls apart. But that's okay, you know. I'm just like getting by a can. My good pal Daniel got out of jail. He was in for a 3-month refresher course after doing a 6-month stint, but he's out now and he's as free as you or me, which, you know, is like something to think about. And then the rest of the show is being dedicated to Mike the Headless Chicken, who back in the 40s lived for a year with no head but one brain cell just hanging out over to the side, and he wound up choking in his sleep. You know, it was like and they didn't have the eyedropper there. They left it on tour, and it was ugly. Anyway, so this next number is Bonnie and Delaney with Little Richard playing piano, and it's better than Little Richard's original version, and I'm just going to let it play because it's my birthday, and happy birthday to me. And when they're going to end that damn war, huh? I don't know. Nobody cares anymore. Okay, well, here we go. Yes. There's a war going on? Nah. You got a birthday present, just throw it through the front window. All right, I'm gonna try something here. I'm just gonna try this to see what happens. So y'all hold on here. Okay, I think this is gonna work. I think this could work. Not for not, carry the one.
till I one day quit my job. And I went up to Van Buren, where I heard I had some cousins, but my cousins was all rank strangers to me. Now I'm living in North County with a woman from the barroom. Got a room there in a ranch house with some guy that we don't know. Was a note up at the laundry instead of $100 a month. Hell, they're both just rank strangers to me. My name is Carthel Porter. I got a son, I got a daughter. The boy, he's with his mother. The girl, she's with my mom. And I rarely ever show up, but that's the way that I grow up. And they're both just rank strangers to me. And it's lonely here inside me now. I can't climb out of this hole somehow. I run these roads, done what I know to do. Headed boat, just like I'm playing blind man's blood. Well, my name is Carthel Porter, and I just got back from Texas, where I've been for 7 months, till I one day quit my job. And I went up to Van Buren, where I heard I had some cousins, but my cousins was all rank strangers to me. Yeah, my cousins was all rank strangers to me. Could be a spoonful of coffee, could be a spoonful of tea, just a little spoonful of your pretty love, good enough for me. There's nothing about that, sometimes it dies about that. Everyone relies on love. with is relying upon a spoonful. Oh, yeah. I broke a pick.
I've been hanging out with Mexicans.
Hey. And what did they call you?
The Mexicans? Well, back when I smelled bad, they called me El Cadavro, which means the dead body. But now with the surgery, my friends that are Latin American, they call me Chuletita, which means little pork chop.
So this, I you know, back in '97, I got all these blood clots in my legs. It was like deep vein bilateral thrombosis, they call it, which what it amounts to is like I had hundreds of blood clots up and down both legs, and you know, you could die from one blood clot, and like I had hundreds. I mean, the technician who like gave me the, I don't know if it was CAT scan or whatever it was, you know, she was like checking it out, and like she started going, "Whoa, my God!" You know, she's a black woman. She started turning white, you know. And I'm like, "What?" And she goes, "Well, you could die from one blood clot. We have hundreds up and down both legs, you know. I've never seen this before." So, you know, that calmed me right down. And this friend of mine, Rick Wood, he's like such a good guy, man. He would like, he had to work every day, you know, he's got kids, he'd take them to school, and like every day that I was in the hospital, I was in the hospital for 8 days, he would stop by Whole Foods and get me a glass of carrot juice and a muffin. You know, I mean, every morning, you know, before he went to work, he stopped by and dropped this off. And then he stops by and he made this for me. He makes architectural models, and he made this for me. And the deal is, like, I always have shit happen to me, you know. So this hospital thing, nobody was really surprised when this happened, because shit always happens to me. And I also had this band that I had at that point for like 7 years called Kamikaze Cowboy. And so he makes this to me, you know, and the gist of it is, see, it's like the Kamikaze Cowboy, you know, crash, boom, cowboy. And every time they almost get the Kamikaze Cowboy, he gets away at the last minute, you know. I thought that's pretty amazing, pretty fucked up but amazing, and you know, so then I'm like, I'm at the hospital, and I was having like some trouble with breathing, and my hands start turning orange, you know, and they're giving me all these tests, and they're trying to figure out what the hell, you know, they had never really seen this before, and they're checking my kidneys and stuff, you know. And then they realize it's from me drinking this carrot juice every morning. I OD'd on beta carotene or something, and started turning my hands orange, you know. So that was kind of bizarre. Frankie, he would like, my mom would pay for me to go take lessons on guitar, and I wouldn't understand what the guy was saying, but I'd come home and I'd tell Frankie what the guy told me, and Frankie would learn to do it, and then he'd teach me how to do it. You know, it's like my mom was paying for him to get lessons, but then he wanted to teach me, so it all worked out. Anyway, all these guys are dead. Frankie died. He married some woman who he had met in high school, and it was like fierce, and she was like kind of crazy, and she wound up shooting and killing him. It was some weird stuff. They had a daughter, and the mother was out living on the street, and the daughter talked Frankie into letting her stay in the basement. One day he heard the kid crying in the basement, went down to see what it was, opened up the basement door, started to go down, and a gunshot hit him in the chest and killed him.
and that was pretty weird because me and Frankie together, we made a whole person. You know, he knew the technical stuff. I knew I was the idea guy. I didn't have a car, but I knew places to go. Frankie had a car, but he didn't know any place to go. I couldn't play guitar that well, but I could rock, and you know, he could play guitar. And you know, he couldn't sing, I could sing. You know, we were a whole person all together. When he died, you know, I had to like figure out how to put that all together. Gary McLean, he when draft age came, we were all fucked up. You know, nobody wanted to go to Vietnam. Nobody believed in that shit, and he wound up going to Canada. But he was another crazy guy. I mean, he was like, there was. Well, he would take me over to his house where he lived with his mom and dad, and his dad hated him because he had long hair, and he brings me in through the basement, and his dad is like this old guy. He's totally hairless. It's a hot summer day. He's sitting there in the basement with just a pair of like jockey shorts on, his feet in a bucket of cold water. He's got a wet rag on top of his head, and he's working on an outboard motor. And like we go upstairs and we're jamming, and Gary's room is like a cesspool, you know. It's got like shit up to like here on the floor, you know. And I'd say, "Where's that record I lent you like 3 weeks ago?" And he'd go, "Oh, wait a second." You just grab a pile of trash, go 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Here it is, and he'd give me the record. We're up there jamming one time, and like we hear this big thud from down the basement, and Gary's mom comes running in going, Gary, the outboard motor's falling over on your father's leg. You have to help him." And he's like, "Okay, Mom, just as soon as we finish this song." You know, I go and finish this song. He was like all screwed up. But when it came time to, one time I lived in the basement at my family's building, and he had my own door so I could go in and out, and the family would never know if I left in the middle of the night or whatever. And I was 16 years old and just being crazy, you know. And one time I had just taken a bath and my hair was really long and I was trying to keep it straight, you know. And so like I had this school tie. I had my hair soaking wet and really long, and I wrapped this tie around my head to like plaster my hair down, thinking that it'll dry and it'll be straight, you know. And like I'm just sitting there in the bed watching TV and eating a bag of barbecue potato chips. I mean, I'm naked, I got this tie around my head, and like Gary comes busting in through the door, and he sees me, and he's just like laughing hysterically. He had this high-pitched laugh, you know, like this tie around my head, and I'm naked with the potato chips and everything. And he starts like throwing this literature at me, like these porno films that he's gotten, you know. And he's just like throwing them all over the bed, and I'm there like naked with the potato chips in the headband, and he's throwing this shit. And he goes, "And they sent me this to prove how good it was." And he pulls out this little baggie, and he throws it at me, and it's got like this little creamy substance inside the little baggie, like somebody's jacked off inside of a bag. And later he admitted that it was like really only hand cream in there, but it was still pretty strange. And anyway, so like when the draft hit, him and his girlfriend at the time, who worked at a beauty salon, she's kind of this short, fat gal with a bubble haircut that was like platinum blonde. Her name was Midge. They just put all their possessions into 2 great big 50-gallon rubber trash cans, threw in the back of the car, and went up to Canada. You know, I don't know what was up with Canada taking people like that in, but they did. And then after doing up there and, you know, escaping the draft and making this major statement where he couldn't come down here forever, eventually he could, but anyway, he wound up working for the Bank of Montreal, repossessing people's shit. You know, and I'm just thinking, what was the point of all that, you know? And then he wound up, I think, committing suicide because he died by pulling his car in front of a coming train and just stopping on the tracks, and you get smashed and killed, you know? So be careful when you make those major life choices about where you're going to go. the other guy, Roland Kirk was his name, the black guy, and I guess every gang on the north side has to have one black guy. I went to high school with him, and he just lived with his old man, and they didn't get along. And as soon as he got big enough, and he was like 6'3", to where he could like knock his old man down, he did, and then he had to get out. And I was like living in that basement, and he asked if I could, you know, if he could let him stay there. So I said sure, you know, and you know, I just lived with my mom. My sister lived upstairs, and then my grandpa and grandma, they lived upstairs over that. And my mom, she, you know, she was a library clerk, and all she knew is, what was that guy's name, that writer we were talking about? James Baldwin, you know, was like a black popular writer, and he was a homosexual, and now her son, who was growing long hair and wearing love beads, was living in the basement with a black guy with an afro that went up to here, you know, and she asked me if I was a homosexual one time, and it kind of like, that'll freak you out when you're 16, you know, your mom asks you, are you a homosexual, you know, it's like, damn, am I supposed to be, you know? Anyway, it was all pretty weird, you know, and she was like freaked out, you know, because our little section of the neighborhood was still white. You know, what would the neighbors think if there was a black guy living down in the basement in our house, you know? But that all wound up passing, you know. We had this big Thanksgiving dinner, and my aunt, who like it was my great aunt, was my mom's aunt. She came to visit, and she was like from the country, and she was like a barmaid. She had like a big old tattoo on her arm from being a barmaid. And this is like 1967 or something, you know. And this woman's got a tattoo on her arm, which was like very bizarre. And my mom says, Aunt Lil, we're gonna have a Negro fellow with us for Thanksgiving. I hope you don't mind, you know. And Aunt Lil goes, oh hell, I don't care what color a person is, it's all fine with me, you know. And I loved Aunt Lil the rest of my life. But anyway, so the weirdest part is like Christmas morning, I had stopped going to church and everything, but my mom, it was really a big deal. She wanted us to go to church with her, and she called us upstairs Christmas morning, and she gave me my Christmas present, and then she like hands Sid a picture, I mean a package, and he opens it up, and it's like these black nylon stockings that black guys used to wear back then, and you know, it's like a little tear comes down his face. He can't believe that she got him a present. And that morning we wound up going to church with her for Christmas Mass. And my mom, like, she's like a little short woman, about 5'4", and there's like these two huge guys walking into church with her. One's got hair down to his shoulders, the other's like, you know, this black guy with like a big afro, and this little lady. It was like, you know, like the neighbors didn't have enough to talk about already. Last time I saw him, he had like left here and just gone on the road, and he came back, and he was like a shadow of his former self. He had been doing MDA, which is speed of some sort, and he like had lost a good 50 pounds, and he was never fat, and he was like really almost gaunt looking. And we were driving around, he had a car, and we'd stop into a gas station, he'd fill the tank up, and then when we left, he'd like pull a credit card out of his wallet and go, I guess this one's about done. He'd throw that out the window, and I was like, damn, you know, he wasn't like this before he left, you know. But he had all kinds of stories, and he was like, he was talking about wanting to stay and live there with us again for a while. And man, I didn't know how to tell him he couldn't stay, but he could, man. We couldn't do that again. And so I was like, boy, you know, you've really got it made, man. You're free. You're living on the road. That's the way to go. I wish I could be like that. You know what I mean? And he's like, yeah, I think I see what you're saying here. Yeah, I know what I hear what you're saying.
and he left at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He was going back down the city. We were living at the airport at the time, out by the airport, not living in the airport. And he said he'd come back and say goodbye before he left town. And I stayed up all night, and he never came back. And that was the last I heard from him. And I felt like a schmuck because I didn't just tell him he couldn't stay. I had tried to trick him, but he knew what I was talking about. So that was the last time I saw him. So essentially, I'm pretty sure he's dead, and that means they're all dead. I mean, they all are dead as far as I know. And I've tried my best to get there with them, but I just haven't succeeded yet. His name was Roland Glenn, but when he was still in high school, they did a play, Mr. Roberts, and he was like the one black guy in the play. And that was like at the same time that Sidney Poitier had just won the Academy Award. You know, it's like it was a big deal, black actor. So they nicknamed him Sid. And Sid stuck. I mean, that was the name that stuck. And my band played at school one time, which was really strange because like we had long hair and we were like social pariahs within the Catholic school, you know, because they were all in soul bands with short hair, and you know, we were freaks. And Sid started hanging out with us, and at first I didn't get it, you know. I didn't get what this black guy was hanging along with us, you know, long hair white guys. And he just sort of made it clear that, you know, he was into that stuff too. And that was right when Jimi Hendrix came out. And like I can remember riding on the Lee Avenue bus with a Jimi Hendrix record, and it was like really cold out, and I had long hair and a peat coat, and I'm not wearing socks. You know, I got on loafers and not wearing socks. But like these two black girls saw this Jimi Hendrix album, they saw Jimi Hendrix picture on there, and they just laughing and pointing. And you know, well, that's the way it was with Sid too, man. He'd walk down the street, and it was just really weird, man. It was like, you look at it now, and it didn't look that outlandish, but it did at the time. And it was kind of rough on him too, you know, because I remember we were walking down the street in North City, and we'd pass these two black girls, you know, and he'd say something like, "Oh, what's up, sister?" And, you know, they'd go, "You ain't no brother of mine," you know, walking with that honky, you know. And it's like, I didn't have to worry about anywhere we went, you know, because nobody was going to fuck with us, with him there, you know. But, like, it wasn't always a picnic for him, you know. He was sort of getting it from both sides. Yeah, I do look for people. I look for people who are different, you know, people who stand out in a real ordinary sort of way. You know, people not who are like the type who are going to be in magazines or something, but they have some quality, and it's mainly having to do with who they are rather than what they look like per se. You know, because like a lot of people think that they're like really beautiful in a very hip sort of looking way, you know, and don't understand why I don't want to take their picture, you know. But it's more about who the person is, you know. Like this young girl Lindsay, who, you know, who travels all over the country by herself and stuff. It's like that, you know. It just strikes me lately. I'm taking pictures of some people who are like maybe a little bit too young to be interesting yet. I mean, you know, you shoot somebody young, you're going to get somebody pretty. Just, I mean, you know, because young is beautiful in reality, but doesn't make them interesting. And so I'm kind of like staying away from that. It also involves people who am in a community with. There was back when I first started doing this in the late 90s, early 2000, it was a group of people who were involved in the same rock and roll art, writer type people, you know, and they were all knew each other, and we were all like this big family. And in the course of things, a lot of them got married, killed themselves, died, whatever, started having kids, and they just stopped coming around. And I went through like a couple year period where I was a little bit lost. I didn't know what I was going to take pictures of, and now I've sort of fallen in with this group of younger kids, all in their early 20s, who are, involved in the record label and doing bands, and they're just as interesting as the last group, only in a different way. But I guess I am conscious of them being younger and more brand new. A lot of people have asked me about why I don't shoot older people. They say they're a lot more interesting looking. Just because I work with people who I know, and it happens where I live. Okay, these people are a different version of me, really. There's something about them, and their creative spirit inside them, and I don't have connections with a lot of people more my age who aren't sort of fully formed. You know what I'm talking about? They're like, by the time they're my age, they're generally, preparing their nest for the coming winter, and they're not out there doing stuff. They're like more drawn inside, and they're more hardened in where they are. And I want people who are still out there, ready to change and everything. And in terms of how I see them, I have this idea in my head that, like, in my work, I'm creating this little world, so like the more densely I could populate that, the better. And also, the more mysterious I could do it, the better. I work with lighting, and I noticed that you are kind of doing this film, a lot of the sort of lighting that I use, only mine's maybe darker. But I like the idea of shit that's like sort of coming apart, and just sort of like the concept of light in the darkness, like and the beauty of disintegration, and that's why I use like 3200 film, because the grain's bigger and it looks like it's. If you look, the more you blow it up, the more it looks like it could just crumble apart. But I do like dark, and I like stuff that that draws a feeling in your gut, and a lot of that is sadness, because I feel a lot of sadness. I had, I'll be honest, I had a fucked up life, and that's the only story I have to tell, and I'm like in the process of telling that story. And I think, I grew up in a very small place, 3 rooms with 7 people, and so it was dense, and I feel like my stuff turns out being kind of like Dylan's sort of surrealistic period with his lyrics, where he like throws everything in there, including the kitchen sink. And that's why, like, when I show my stuff, I like, maybe I've only got a couple people in each shot, but I like to do like 70 pieces all at the same time, because it's not about just each individual shot. It's like the multitude of it, It's like, there ain't just a few of us. There's like a ton of us, and I want it to look like a giant traveling freak show circus, but not so. I don't take pictures of people with like nails through their faces and shit. I take pictures of people who are kind of like their own kind of freaks from what they've lived through, not from how they've mutilated themselves. It's like I grew up in North City, and then when I finally moved out of North City, I moved with my mom to a little place out in North County, which, if people don't know what North County is, it's it's sad suburbs of hardened people who are like sort of trying, it's like they're trying to be a little bit more upwardly mobile, but they're generally blue collar. And there's that standing joke about what's the difference between Yogurt and North County. Yogurt has an active culture. You know, it's like all stripped down, but they're like hard people out there. And we lived in this little place called Lambert Park Apartments. Lambert Field was the airport, and these places were like Quonset huts on both sides, and they had a big sign on the main office building. It says "Suburban Living at its Best." And the first night we were there, somebody was killed in the alley behind our place. You know, and then when I moved out on my own, I moved to like the Delmar Loop back before there was anything there, before Blueberry Hill was there, and it's, you know, it's now like a circus carnival. It's not like an amusement park there, you know, but it was like pretty gritty there. And when that started changing, then I moved to the south side, and that was about 74. And I've been living in different places in the South City off and on ever since then. And the reason that it feels so natural to me is because like it looks like North City. I mean, the same brick buildings, the same everything, you know, the same kind of way of thinking. Although I think people in North City are a little bit harder mentally. You're not as malleable. I don't know. South City is way different from North City now. I mean, the backdrops are the same, but this is, I don't know what the word is, cosmopolitan? You know, okay, there's the International House is here now on the south side that assists immigrants in, you know, in their transition to becoming American citizens. And so a lot of immigrants live here. So like we got pockets of Bosnians, heavy pockets of Bosnians, Vietnamese, you know, anybody who's like just coming to the city, you know, they hit the south side. So you got that, and you got a black population that mixes together a lot more than in our city did. And then, you know, we've got like whole groups of lesbians. You know, there's a lesbian coffee house up there, so that's on South Grand, so that's a real presence. And it's not like all these people intermingle. They don't. You know, we all we're like shoulder to shoulder, but we don't really communicate, you know, like you could live in South City and not personally have black friends, but, you know, you're like shoulder to shoulder with them in the grocery store and everything, you know, as opposed to North City. When I lived there, it was like real separate, you know, like lines of demarcation, you know, okay, you don't come over this side of the street, we won't go to that side of the street. Here it's like, you know, we're together, we're equal, and that's it. You know, we're not going to really be friendly all the time. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's not hostile, but the hostility is just under, you know, like on Cherokee Street, there's like a big Spanish community and a black community, and then these young white kids who are like real bohemian types, creative types, and they all, you know, they're not exactly living in harmony, but, you know, they're basically okay. But you walk down the street there at night, and you have the opportunity of being killed by anybody from, you know, wow, I wonder what color the person who's going to kill me is going to be, you know. It's like you could be killed by anybody, you know, a wide variety of different people. You could wind up in a dumpster. That would be cool, you know. And it is cool, you know, because it's like the old West or something, you know. It's like that pioneer spirit, the people who are like homesteading down there, you know, because like it's all cool and everything during the day, and at night, you know, it's like, wow, there's kind of an edge, because, you know, there's real danger in the air. You could walk down the street, you know, and you could be killed at any time, you know. People I know live there have like bullets coming flying through their front window, you know. But man, and that reminds me of North City too, you know, because like that feeling of being out in the street and you better be on your guard, you know, and you better act like you belong there, because if you don't act like you belong there, you're going to be in trouble, you know. Another thing people talk about, and it's always mentioned, you know, that I shoot so many pictures of beautiful young women, you know, and a lot of times that gets written off to be, oh, you know, a dirty old man, you know. It's like, well, you know, I was a dirty young man, you know. It was like, I was raised in this house, you know, 7 people in 3 rooms, and I was the only boy, you know. And man, if you don't think that requires therapy, you know, I mean, from the time I was like 3 until 13, I lived with 6 women of different ages in 3 rooms, actually 2 rooms, you know, because one was a kitchen, and you know, that will leave you with some confusion and some scars, and I was sort of like the scapegoat of the family, and you know, I'm the fucking black sheep of the family, and they all moved to the suburbs because they wanted to move up and out, you know, and I wanted to just dig in deeper to where I was, and I just have all kinds of feelings about women that I'm still trying to like piece them together and work through it, you know. A lot of stuff going on there, and I, you know, maybe you could ask me some specific question, you know, but like I don't know what else to say about that. There's like some real idealized stuff, you know. I had like a special relationship with my one girl cousin who was a year younger than me, and we were very close for a while, and now we're not. And there's just a lot going on, a lot that was going on there that somehow I'm kind of recreating in my work. And I'm also like sort of I'm sort of fascinated with this period of my life, you know. The people that I take pictures of are right around the age that I was at when I first got out of North City, you know, and I don't think that's a coincidence. I think there's a lot of stuff that went on there that I was like very first going, what the fuck? You know, it was like when I was starting to like feel the consequence of what had gone on in the whole time I was growing up. And it was like pretty brutal stuff, you know. I mean, my grandfather lived upstairs, and he was like, he ruled the house with an iron hand, and he was distant from me, you know. And there was times he was very kind and even kind of loving to me, but you know, that was rare. And my way of dealing with it was like slipping around at night, walking the streets, you know, doing shit that young guys do down in North City, you know. When I was younger, I lost myself in baseball, and then when I hit 14, rock and roll came around, I lost myself in that. And I distracted myself pretty good with all manner of just digging into mysterious shit. And actually then I got into drugs and alcohol relatively late and wound up quitting that by the time I was 29 or 30. And it's all been just me sifting through ashes, you know, just seeing what's left. You know, you hit a certain point in your life and you have to look around and go, whoa, what was that all about, you know? And you go through and see what you got left to work with. In part, I'm sort of celebrating it in both positive and negative ways. You know, I'm celebrating the hurt and pain that took place and that they're going through, and in a way I'm celebrating you know, the glory and the freedom of it. You know, like I've said before, you know, I used to shoot a lot of people in bars, you know, and what I always wanted to do was like capture them at that moment that they're like so fucked up and they feel like they could fly and live out their dreams, you know, and maybe 2 seconds later they fall over on the floor drunk, you know. I want to catch them when they're at their peak, not when they hit the ground. I'm not into like, I'm not making fun of nobody, you know. I'm like, I'm sort of glorifying the spirit. I'm not looking down on anybody. See, about the middle 90s, I hit this point where I was like really coming apart. And, you know, I've been in and out of like some little therapy and shit for a long time. And about the middle 90s, I really came apart. And I found this therapist, and it was like, it was sort of like an outlaw branch of the science or something, you know. It was like this cat who operated kind of like on his own. He was a man about 7 or 8 years older than me, and he was a gay guy, which for me at the time was like, you know, a big deal, you know, that he was gay. I wasn't sure about where I was with that, you know, having a gay therapist, but, you know, it turned out to almost be helpful. But you know, when I was like really coming apart, when I went to see him, he said, well, you know, here's the deal. There's a couple ways you could do therapy. One of them is to like put a Band-Aid on the problem, and that's kind of it, you know, and that's not the way I do it. He said there's the other way where like, what we do is like, we rip that fucking scab off, and we like, he said, I will stay with you and we will take this through till it heals. And he goes, now, you know, the bad side of that is that could take like 7, 8, 9 years, you know, but I will be there, and I will be, you know, we started out doing it a couple times a week, and he knew what my finances were, and he did it for $5 a session, you know. And he said that one of the things that made it interesting to him was that our stories were like real similar. He'd been through like abuse and stuff like I had, and you know, and he wanted to do this. So like we did it a couple times a week, $5 a session, and it went on, you know, and like I could call him whenever I needed to, you know. I mean, I didn't call him late at night or anything like that, but if I needed to talk, I could talk to him. And it was a very vulnerable place to be, you know, and slowly things changed, and slowly I got stronger. And he was like bringing me to this certain point, and I was like almost ready to stop going. And then somebody called me in the middle of the day one time and said that, yeah, my therapist had died in his sleep. You know, and I was like, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready, you know, but I had to get ready. But like the main thing that he taught me was that like this work that I do is like one of the best things that I can do. It's like maybe what's saved my life. He said that generally people who have lived through what I have lived through are not still alive at this point. You know, they're either killed by somebody else, or they're killed by themselves, or whatever. You know, or they've been, you know, lived in such a way that they couldn't go on living. And that my strength was being able to tell my story, to spew it out, you know. And I do that in everything I do, you know. I mean, like I write songs, and the songs are telling my story, and I take pictures, and the pictures are telling my story, and the stories are telling my story, you know, and the cartoons that I do are telling my story. It's all the same thing. And I'm the only one who could do that. I'm the only one who could, like, say what it was like to be this guy named Bob Reuter, who was born in the middle of the 20th century, and, you know, in the middle of America, you know, at this given time. and I'm the only one who knows what that's like, and so that's the only story I got to tell. And there's people out there who could who make art out of like making things up and doing abstract work, but mine is more like, boom, here's what it is, and that's got a whole lot to do with. Okay, I wasn't really surprised when I got nominated for the RFT thing, because I had been nominated something like 19 times and I've never won. And every year it was something crazier than last year. It was like at one point this girl won, and her boyfriend happened to be the editor of the music section of the Riverfront Times, and then they broke up the next year and she wasn't on it again. One year, this guy won Best Singer-Songwriter. His name was Dave Black. He was not, he didn't write songs and he didn't sing. He was a guitar player, but he staged a big write-in campaign with his fans, and so he won Best Singer-Songwriter. Another year, I think Jay Farrar won. I think Chuck Berry won one year, It's like it was always something. So I wasn't surprised that I got nominated. And I knew that my profile was higher this year because of Big Muddy Records and Alley Ghost and all that. And I did keep posting for people to vote, but I was still shocked when I won. It was pretty crazy because, ever since I was 14 years old, when I was 14 years old, before, the radio show and pictures and all that, all I ever wanted to be was a songwriter from the time I was like 14 years old. And then, after being nominated 19 times at the age of 57, they finally say, okay, you're the best songwriter, male, singer-songwriter male, And so that was pretty cool. When we got there, it didn't look like there was that many people gonna be there at first. And I didn't want you to come, because I just pictured, it'd be like really standing out, It's Bob and his film crew, and I even called you up and said, no, let's don't do it. But you kind of talked me into it, and you guys laid low, and after a little bit, more people showed up, not even know you were there. And then Fred Friction, he's like an old friend, and he was nominated against me, and if I would have lost to him, I would have really killed myself. But I still felt bad for him because I knew how it feels when you don't win. So I asked him if he wanted. He's always accompanying everybody on spoons, and I said, "You want to accompany me on spoons when they call me up?" And I think what he says, can I? He says, if I could pound on your dick with him, and I'm like, no. And he's going, you mean you're not taped up? And I said, no. And he said, I've got hollow tip spoons, and I'm like, no. And so I thought he wasn't going to do it, But then, and then there he was, And he did get a few good licks in on me, But we were kind of just doing a routine, So I was like, I want to thank Fred Friction for accompanying me on spoons, but it worked out pretty good. People were telling me it did. It felt great, and then afterwards, they gave me this little trophy, it was like made of plexiglass, but we've already seen that, right? And I left early. And I felt real empty afterwards, like there was nobody to tell about it. I called up another songwriter friend of mine Steve Carosello, and he had the same operation that I had on his heart, and he's a songwriter for about the same length of time, and we just talked and talked and talked, and that felt better, but I just kept on going, damn, I finally got it. I've sold some songs, and now I won this award. It's pretty good. My mom and my dad met. My dad had been going out with my aunt, and then he met my mom who was the less pretty of the two sisters, and I don't know, he wound up marrying her. And they moved back to North St. Louis. My dad was from Maplewood. And I got a sister who's like 8 years older than me. So she was somewhere around 11 or 12 when I was born. And my dad lived 2 years after I was born, and he died of a heart attack. From what I hear, he was kind of a heavy drinker, didn't own a car, worked for the post office, and I've talked to therapists about this, and they read how he died as a suicide, because he was born with a congenital heart problem, and so he had like that issue all his life. But he was working at the post office, and he had a heart attack at the post office, and instead of like calling for an ambulance or something, he is this going too far back? Okay. Instead of calling for an ambulance or something, he finished what he was doing, and then he like walked to the bus stop, which was like 3-4 blocks away, and he waited for the bus, and he got on the bus, and it was a 20-minute ride back home, and he had another heart attack on the bus, and then he walked 2 blocks home from the bus stop and climbed up the stairs to the 2nd floor and had a 3rd heart attack. And my mom said they called an ambulance then, and they got to the hospital, and the doctor said to the nurse, "Now take care of these people, they're poor." And she said, "Oh my God, if Henry would have heard that, he would have died right on the spot, you know, being called poor, because he thought he wasn't, you know." But anyway, and he died, and my mom didn't have anywhere to go, and she hadn't worked in a while. So she moved in with her parents about 6 blocks away. My grandpa and grandma owned the building. It was the one that my grandpa grew up in, and it was like a 3-family flat. And she moved in there on the 1st floor with me and my sister, and then shortly after that, my aunt moved in. She'd gone through her 2nd divorce, and she had 3 girls, and they moved in. And during the winter, they lived in the basement, but during the winter there was no heat down in the basement. So during the winter they lived with us upstairs, which amounts to it was a 3-room apartment, you know, kitchen, bedroom, and a front room. My aunt and her girls slept on the sofa bed in the front room. Me, my mom, and my sister slept in the next room, and the next room was the kitchen. So it was like 7 people. I was the only boy, and you know, that was pretty crazy. I went to therapy for a lot of years dealing with all that. But North St. Louis City was kind of a rough area. A lot of Irish, Italian, and German immigrants, and it was right on the edge of a black neighborhood. And you know, just saw the whole neighborhood go through changes. You know, at first, like, these hillbillies from down south moved into the neighborhood, and it was like, there goes the neighborhood. You know, it'd be like 10 kids, parents and a dog, all living in one room. There was a storefront. There was storefront churches every other block. There was bars on every corner. It was really a cool place to live. It was like living in an old movie from the 50s, you know, with gangs and street corner churches made it really colorful. And I totally threw myself into baseball from the time I was like 9 till like 12 or 13, and then I discovered rock and roll, and I threw myself totally into that. and it was a strange place to live. There was like a code on the north side, and I thought it was just the way people are, but it was different. It was different, you know. There's this code, like, you know, if you were at a bar sitting with some woman, you know, might be your woman, might not be your woman, might be just somebody you're sitting with. If another guy comes up and like asks her to dance or something like that, you've got to kill him, you know. I mean, and I thought that's just the way it was everywhere. I was like really shocked to know that like more civilized people aren't like that, you know. And I do my radio show, it's like right before Artie Dwyer, who's also from the north side, you know, and we're always telling jokes and shit, you know, and like we got a lot in common. And I told him this one joke about what's the difference between jam and jelly, and the punchline is, you know, well, I've never jellied my dick into your mouth. And I told that, and like he like almost went crazy on me, you know. I mean, he like was like, now I got to kill you, you know. But he wasn't kidding around that much, you know. I mean, he was kind of kidding, but he kind of really wasn't. He was really upset, you know. You don't, you know, where we come from, you don't say that to another man, you know. Say some shit like that and like go on like everything's okay, you know. And I wound up apologizing profusely, and he was like, you know, well, I really like you, man, you know, so I'm gonna let it go, you know. But there was a seriousness about it, you know, and like if somebody crosses you, you cut them out, you know. I mean, and that's something that I kind of have always hated about my family, and then secretly liked about my family, you know. And I've been dealing with it ever since. But the whole thing with music, when you live with that many people, and your whole environment is strange like that, you know. You have to like watch what streets you walk down. You have to like you cross into a neighborhood, and it's like it's different territory than yours, and you're liable to get your ass kicked for just being there. Or, you know, you walk in the streets at night, and there's like a roving gang of glue sniffers, you know, so you have to like, I'm serious, you know, and you have to like stay away from them, you know. And dude be walking on the street, got a bread bag, and you know, just like glue smeared all over his face, you know, and then there's the police, you gotta stay away from them, you know, and you have to like negotiate your way, you know. You can't. You gotta be kind of clever to survive in a world like that. And music gave me an interior world to escape to, you know. And there was no way in that neighborhood I could be a badass. There was badasses for me to look at every day, and there was no way I was gonna like compete with them. But I could be a musical badass. And that's what I concentrated on, you know. I could kick your ass if I had my electric guitar with me, but you know. And then we grew our hair long, and that was a whole different world too, you know. But the neighborhood itself was like a stew of different kinds of music, you know. I mean, the hillbillies coming up from the South, Arkansas, and all that. They brought that kind of music with them, you know, and I just kind of always saw it as Hoosier music, you know. And it was something I really liked about it because it was real, you know. It was sort of like soul music, but it wasn't. But it wasn't. And then, you know, I went to school with all these black kids, especially in high school, and got to know them. And then I got brainwashed by my mom and my sister, listened to show tunes nonstop, and I think that has something to do with why my stuff, even when it rocks hard, it's melodic. But the main thing is I lived a lot in my head, and I had to be kind of cunning to survive, and that's the story that was going on, and that's the story that I keep telling, whether it's in pictures or drawings or music or even on my show. You know, it's like this big hodgepodge of everything, including the kitchen sink, and it's gritty and it's dirty, and you got to be clever, and you got to be cunning, and you get through. But like, I live for that gritty stuff. Because I had this sister that was older than me, and she would like be watching music stuff on TV and collecting records when she was in high school and all that. At a younger age, I got hip to a lot of stuff more than somebody else my age would. Like, I remember seeing Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis on TV and just all kinds of stuff like that. And then when the Beatles came, you know, they were like closer to my age. They were still older than me, but you know, it was closer, and everybody I knew, you know, was like moved by that. And I was pretty well lost before that, you know, and that sort of gave me a direction to go in, you know. And there were like 3 or 4 of my friends who all felt the same way, and there was these 3 guys in the neighborhood who were starting a band. They just got instruments and they were starting to play, and they were looking for more people, you know. And I said, well, I want to be in it, you know. And do you know how to play guitar? No. Do you have a guitar? No. You know, so like I ragged on my mom until she got me a guitar. And when she did, she had to do it behind my grandfather's back, because he was like the man of the house then, you know. And he just saw it like I never followed through with anything, and that, you know, this would be one more thing she'd spend money on, a guitar, and I would like play around with it for a little bit, and then I'd, you know, it'd sit in a corner and she'd be out the money. So she snuck out and bought me this guitar. And this guy Don Tomazzi, he lived down the street, and he was a big dork, you know. He was like this Czechoslovakian kid. His dad still had a heavy accent, and he had something wrong with his feet, so he wore these round toe shoes that were orthopedic or something when he was like 14 years old, you know. And he kind of like walked funny, and, you know, just was not cool whatsoever. And but he really got into the idea of playing guitar, and it was just amazing how he picked it up. He got like a dime store guitar. I think the brand name was Noble, and he just started teaching himself right from scratch. Nobody taught him nothing. He just learned it all on his own, and any information he got, he would swallow up. And my mom paid for me to take lessons, but I would go there, and like the guy would sort of say this stuff, and I sort of heard what he's saying, but I couldn't learn it from that. And I would come home and I would tell Don, and he would go, oh, you mean like this? And then he'd show me. So like, my mom was paying for these lessons for me to take, and I would go there and I couldn't understand it, so I would tell Don about it, and he would teach me how to do it, you know. So like, my mom was paying for his lessons or something, but I wanted to learn too. And I was never quite as good as he was, but he couldn't sing worth a lick, and I could sort of sing, so that all kind of worked out well in a way. But at first it was like really bad. The very first band we ever had was called the Cartels, and we had a handicapped drummer. His one hand was shriveled up, and so he just played with one stick. And, you know, it wasn't like, was that group Def Leppard or whatever? He was like really bad. You know, we had a one-armed drummer, and we had an accordion player, and these little plastic microphones, and oh, it was a shame. But we played out a couple of times, and we played this Battle of Bands one time. It was sponsored by Pepsi, and when we came out to play, everybody ran out of the hall to go outside to get their free Pepsi. It was like, it was totally embarrassing, but we just kept on going and kept on going. And by late 65, 66, we wound up, we were still in high school, we were playing frat parties, and we played for these college kids, and that was pretty crazy, you know. Man, but I did like to look at those college girls, and I always had this thing, you know, that like, man, someday I'm gonna have me a college girl, you know. And then I got out of high school, and I was in college, and I was like, damn, someday I'm gonna have me a college girl, you know. And it's like, and I did, you know. And then, like right now I'm 57, and every once in a while I think, yeah, I'm gonna have me a college girl, you know. But anyway, but on bumps. So, you know, we were playing all this highly danceable stuff. I mean, that was like trial by fire. You had to be able to rock people at a frat party. Oh, there's one time we learned some protest songs because we thought these were like college kids, and so they were gonna they would dig protest songs, but they were frats, you know. And like, we tried to play a couple of protest songs, and it reminded me of that scene from Animal House where John Belushi comes up to that folk singer and he's wearing the toga. He's like, excuse me, can I see your guitar a second? You know, smashes it or something. They didn't go for the folk, you know, they wanted to be able to dance and drink and throw up and all like that. But we would wait till they were like really smashed and just really gone, and then we would turn amps all the way up and go psychedelic and pull feedback that would just rip through these guys' heads, you know. And I just remember a lot of vomit, and it was like really cool. And then, you know, we went on, and me and Don were always in the same band. And we met this other guy, Tom Chappelle, who I'd gone to grade school with. And actually, he later on wound up being a photographer. He's the guy who like took the pictures of Vanessa Williams, the very first black Miss America, and sold naked pictures of her doing nasty things with these other models, and it's the reason she lost the Miss America title, and it went on to like give her a big career. But he was always this fat kid, you know. Like, we were in high school, he must have weighed like 300 pounds or something, and he was a good drummer, but he made us crazy. And we were just like musicians, but he had like sort of a drive. So he not only was a drummer, but he was the band leader, because he was the guy who would talk to like get us gigs and all that stuff. And we kind of really hated his guts. And that went on till like we graduated from high school, and everything sort of fell apart at that point. Don had knocked up his girlfriend, and she was like insisting that if he kept playing in a band, he would never see his daughter. And Chappelle went away to college, and I just sort of kept on going on my own. And I started, I had gotten into folk music through my brother-in-law. About the time I was learning to play guitar, and I learned about Cisco Houston and Woody Guthrie and Leadbelly and all those people. And so like that had become part of what I dug too. So when the band all fell apart, I started, I would like alternately play by myself on acoustic guitar, and then I'd throw bands together. And like I had a band for a while called Greyhound that was like 3 guitar players, bass, and I was like the lead singer. And I had a big beard and like a fun cap, and I would come out wearing this corduroy jacket with jeans and a t-shirt, and I'd be smoking a cigar. And my little theatrical bit was that I would come out. This guy said, "Don't do this. This will be a great idea, you know." So like, he goes, "You got the cigar in one hand and like a piece of jelly bread in the other hand, and you walk out there puffing on this cigar, and you take the microphone and you smear the jelly bread all over it and you go into the first song, you know. So I'm like, oh, okay, you know, and that was my theatrics right there. And it went on, you know. Moved down to North St. Louis about the time I was 18, and that was like really hard because I had sort of like figured out who I could be while I was living down there, and once we moved to the suburbs, and I wound up getting an apartment with my mom, and I don't know who I was in the suburbs. People would ask me where I lived, and I would never tell them where I lived. I'd tell them where I used to live. Oh, I'm from North St. Louis. Oh, so you live in North St. Louis? Well, no, but I'm from there, you know. And that's when I started dressing like I was a badass from North St. Louis, because I didn't have to worry about them beating me up for dressing like them, you know. And it was my defense when I moved out to the suburbs, you know. It's like, whoa, he's a badass city guy, you know. And it's like, only musically, but I would let them think that, you know, because it was protection. And you know, older people, like authority figures, they didn't like me because I was quiet all the time. I had this one friend of mine who I met in college. He lived out in the suburbs, and he took me over to his house a couple times in the suburbs, and his mom really didn't like me. She referred to me as Icky Boy. I've told this story, right? No? Okay. She referred to me as Icky Boy because I was too quiet, and she thought I had something I was hiding. You know, I was like, yeah, I was hiding the fact that I wasn't enough, you know. But anyway, and he told me, she referred to me as Icky Boy, you know, which like made me feel great. And one night we went out drinking, you know, me, him, and some other people, and he came home so drunk that and I had to piss. So like when we dropped him off, he came into his house drunk with me. I went into the bathroom, and I could hear him go into the room where his mom and dad were like in bed, and he was like talking about they're saying, "You're drunk, aren't you?" And he was so drunk that when they asked him if he was drunk, he said, "Yeah," you know. And I'm in the bathroom, and I'm taking a piss, and I'm looking at this bathroom, you know, and they got like shag carpeting, this red shag carpeting that was about this thick, you know, and they had like frosted windows on the shower, you know. We never had a shower in our lives, you know, but like on the shower doors were like frosted pictures of little fish etched in there, and it was just all really, really nice. And all of a sudden, I was like smashed, and I started really pissed at this woman, and thinking about her calling me Icky Boy and everything. So I remember thinking, what would a guy named Icky Boy do in this situation? So I just pissed all over the bathroom, and you know, on the red carpeting and everything, and I slipped on out the door, and I felt somewhat satisfied inside because I thought, that is something that a cat named Icky Boy would do, you know. Anyway, so when we first started playing in the band, at first I played guitar really briefly, and then we realized we needed a bass, so I started playing bass. And you know, we went down to this place downtown called Hunless Music, which had been around for 1,000,000 years, and we wound up getting a Ford Mustang bass. It was like brand new, and 2 basement cabinets. And you know, I played bass, and for a while we did like almost like Cream type, you know, the band Cream, you know, where you like jam for half hour at a time. And that's when music started getting a little bit boring for me, and then the group fell apart, and I started playing acoustic. And then I didn't go right into college. I worked in a factory for a year, but I thought, you know, no, this is for chumps, you know. It's like I'm getting into school, and I hooked up with some political people, because, you know, I mean, I had some anger in me, you know, being from North St. Louis and all that, you know, and these other student revolutionaries, you know, and we were pretty radical, stage demonstrations and shit like that. And to raise money to do the stuff we did, we used to put on these coffee houses at University of Missouri in St. Louis. And I was kind of in charge of that, you know. I would like get all the music together. And that's when I started really developing a style of playing acoustic guitar that sort of carries over, and I still basically play acoustic guitar. I mean, sometimes I play electric, but I play amplified acoustic most of the time. And I just developed this style that was like a real rhythm section style, you know, the way I play rhythm guitar, that I could play with or without a band, you know. Even if I would play by myself, it still sort of sounded like rock and roll. And that's where I really developed that through that whole period. And then I went through a lot of issues with that, you know, just the whole, I knew I felt all this anger in me, and I didn't know what it was from. I mean, it wasn't buried that deeply, but I didn't know. And, you know, so I got into radical politics and became sort of known for that around the university. Like the chief of police knew me by my first name, and you know, he'd come to me and start talking to me and calling me Bob, you know, and that kind of like unnerved me a little bit. And we had this group called the UMSL Peace and Freedom Party. And we were like, we were a force to be reckoned with. And like a couple of times informers, you know, tried to breach our inner circle, and it was just, it got really strange. And ultimately I just couldn't deal with that. And I had, like, when I was about 20 years old, I had a breakdown. I was going with this gal, had been with her for like since time I just turned 16 till I was about 21, and I just sort of like, she went off to school and married this guy. She went to school up in French Canada. She was a French major. She went up there for like 6 weeks. After being with me for 5 years, she went there for 6 weeks, met this guy, and married him. And I just kind of flipped out, and I got really into drugs and shit then. And I was also, not only was I flipped out about that, but I would like check the mail every day because the Vietnam War was raging away. And I would get drunk every morning before I would check the mail. And it wound up that I wound up staying in school. I developed a friend in the dean's office, and he allowed for me to stay in school past, you know, normally my grade point was like too low, and they would like put you on probation and then they'd drop you out of school. Well, he pulled some strings and allowed me to stay in school even though my grades were really low. And it wound up, when I left UMSL, I had a grade point average of 0.7, you know, but he kept me out of the war. And I saw him like a while ago, and he said, you know, I still got this letter that your mom wrote me. And I went, oh yeah? Because I didn't know anything about this, you know. I said, yeah, it's one of my prized possessions. It was like this letter that she wrote saying, thank you for like saving my son from being killed. Because I got that up on my wall. It's one of my prized possessions. I'm like, yeah, it sounds like her. I never did feel really comfortable here. It was always, I was here for lack of someplace better to be. And I've probably been here as long as I've been almost anywhere since I moved out of the old neighborhood. Longer, 5 years. These were the walls of Bob Reuter Studios, where I had like 1 million pictures of people, mainly pretty young girls, with these tiles in the background. On to something new. I'm pretty glad to be getting out. Amen. Yes, yes, yes. Get those girls out of here. Okay. This is Bob Reuter from Bob's Scratchy Records, and I just wanted to to say, you know, I hope you're ready for like a whole big old pile of music by bad people. You know, this is not stuff by good people. You know, you get that on the regular stations. This is something else. This is this is music by ne'er-do-wells and sexually confused people and troublemakers and just lost souls, and that's what you're gonna get this week. Here we go, we're getting ready. This one here is Webb Pierce. You're listening to Bob Scratchy Records, and that was a New Colony 6 off their own level, Centaur, before they went to a regular major level and just became a bunch of crap. Anyway, here we go. Up next is one from St. Louis. It's off the K-Arc label. It's a guy named Carl Phillips. Here we go. All right, we're back. This next song is by a cat named, it's like from the late 50s, and about 56 or 57 probably, maybe 55. Who knows? Who the hell knows? Okay, it's George Fleming, this guy who looks sort of like, I don't know if you remember Maury Amsterdam, one of the writers on the Dick Van Dyke Show, you know, with Buddy and Sally. Well, Buddy. He looks like Buddy, wearing a Colonel Sanders tie and a pompadour here. Tune by him called I'm Gonna Tell on You. And I just think this is like, this is like rockabilly psychedelic in my mind. So here we go. That was Stan Gunn and his Country Hep Cats here, recorded over in Belleville by Ron Light. Anyway, coming up next, got something that by comparison sounds really, fairly modern, but I'm only by comparison. This one is by Tony Joe White, and it's from back in like '72. He had probably just had to hit Polk Salad Annie, and this was another one. So here, well, it wasn't a hit, but what the hell. This next one is Grand Funk Railroad, not to be confused with Grand Funk. Grand Funk was when they were trying to get their act together and the powers that be were trying to make them more commercial. This was like pre that. This is Grand Funk Railroad, and it's a tune called Highfalutin Woman. And like the Grand Funk Railroad were always huge out in North County here in St. Louis, and that's like, pretty white trash, so this song Highfalutin Woman, you have to remember that for Grand Funk Railroad, a highfalutin woman was any woman who didn't braid the hair under her armpits. So here we are, Grand Funk Railroad doing Highfalutin Woman. That's the choir from out of Cleveland, Ohio, I'm pretty sure, back in the 60s. That is a classic song, and if it was a little bit more scratchy than you're used to hearing this, because I found an actual 45 on it. Mostly you got that on a compilation. Hey, whoever who just made a call about a birthday, could you give me a call back? Okay, just give me a call back, and blah, 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 blah. I'm waiting. Onion was like cooking stuff up for his ox, it's really scratchy, but it was a hit by Red Foley, and I like it because it features the lyrics, you shake it all around till it gets in the hole. So I've always tried to live by that credo myself. Here we go. You're listening to Bob Scratchy Records on 88.1 KDHX. This next song, I just grabbed it because it's by Elmore James, who was sometimes listed as being Elmo James, and this song is listed as, the title of this song is Elmo's Contribution to Jazz. And I thought, I just gotta have that, but I don't think it has too much to jazz, but maybe that's just Elmo's contribution to it. So here, I'm gonna drop it down here right now. Here we go! Gene Vincent, right after he got out of the Navy, he got in a motorcycle accident and screwed his leg up bad. Consequently, you never did see him walk out on stage. They would raise the curtain and he'd already be out there, always poised in that sort of off-kilter position, and often dressed in a black leather outfit. Here's some Gene Vincent. Yeah, you listen to Bob Scratchy Records. That just cut off on its own. Hey, next up is somebody who just died recently, Eddie Bow. He was like a really prolific songwriter and performer in New Orleans for the longest time, in the 50s and early 60s. And he used to be known as the Maharaja because he was like this skinny cat. You know, I guess he was bald, so he wore like a turban with jewels in it and a regular suit, a very cool suit with like a big old wrestling type, you know, boxing champion belt. And he was just like cool as all hell. Anyway, here's one of my favorite cuts by him called Every Dog Has Its Day. You've been listening to Bob Scratchy Records, and that's about it for this week. A lot of stuff going on. I just want to say that The Dirty South is playing at the Venice Cafe tomorrow night, all night. Y'all should do what you want to do. Have a good weekend. It's summertime. That's what I'm saying. Stay tuned for Artie. He's just come in. Oh, the man's bringing snacks. So anyway, y'all take care of yourself, and I will catch you next week on the radio, okay? Take care of yourselves. Peace out.